Les Jones with Judson Vacuum Systems here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'd like to go over and introduce you to our new truck mount called the Judson Maximum CA. The CA stands for Class A truck mount. A Class A truck mount must maintain 230 to 240 on a high flow line and have a minimum of 400 CFM. The truck mount is basically a TNT that we've been producing since late 1969. It's just a modified TNT. So it still has the trademark of the TNT with the components mounted on top. Makes it very easy to work on. It's like everything's mounted on a workbench. One thing nice about a Judson is when you have to repair it, it's unbelievable how easy it is to work on. And most anybody can work on a Judson truck mount. It doesn't require special mechanics. You can basically you do it yourself if you talk to me on the telephone. Anyway, let's go over the Maximum CA and the advantages of this unit. The recovery tank is constructed of an 8-inch thick 304 stainless steel, and it's got a lifetime warranty on this recovery tank for corrosion resistant. You know, aluminum will do the electrolysis. So this tank is extremely well built, and the capacity is 151 gallons. And you can also put a pump out on it if you want to. This is the standard pump out everybody uses. But this recovery tank is an extremely expensive item. If we were making it out, if you look at a truck mount that's got an aluminum tank, it probably costs about $2,000 less to manufacture with the same parts. So when you're looking at a truck mount, if the pump's about the same and the blower's about the same and the engine's about the same, kind of look at buying what parts you're purchasing instead of the total unit in whole. But when you get down to our recovery tank, we got a good bit more cost. So when you're looking at a comparable machine that costs about the same, you got to take into consideration this recovery tank and the cost to make it, because it's not a thin gauge tank, it's a thick gauge, and it'll be here forever. Basically, we just added 1 foot distance to the TNT to give it the 151. The TNT is 120 gallon recovery. We also got a new Superbelt 5M blower, and we're not turning this wide open to high RPM. We got it slowed down, and there's a reason for that. It still has more CFM than the 45. It's got 435 CFM at 12 inches of mercury, which is what you run the machine at. That's what truck mounts run at when they're cleaning, around 10 to 12, depending if it's a low loop carpet or if it's a deep nap, you know. And because we have zero resistance, and always have, Judson's always had zero resistance in our airflow. You know, we got truck mounts, people you can call, that's running almost 40 years old. You know, we got more time on blowers than any other manufacturer. Because we also do industrial vacuum cleaners. And these are vacuums we make for the industrial industry with post office, U.S. government. We're a federal contractor with U.S. government. These vacuums have the same blowers as we use in carpet cleaners, but they got 575 volt motors. But what's so unbelievable about these vacuums is they run 24/7 for years. And we got many, hundreds and hundreds running 24 hours a day since 1980, with about 200 to 300,000 hours on the same blower. So we are very knowledgeable on the vacuum side of the truck mount end, okay? So let's go back to the Maximum, why the 5.6 on there. The 5.6 is on there for sound purposes, to get the noise down. There was a couple of issues. You know, the TNT was not the loudest truck mount, but it was not the quietest truck mount, so we addressed that issue. We could have put an expensive silencer on the 4.5, or we could have put that money in silencing into a larger blower and turn it a little slower, and that actually is quieter than taking a 45 with a silencer. So now we're able to use a common muffler you can get local. See, that's what we're all about. Local repair, local parts. Nothing special whatsoever. That's our claim to fame. Is when you have an issue with a Judson, you got a 75% chance of getting something local, getting that machine back going and back in business. That's what we're all about. As you see, a Judson truck mount is not the most beautiful truck mount that's ever been produced. We don't really care anything about it that much. I mean, we want it to look nice, But we're building a piece of industrial piece of equipment, and it looks like that to me. We always call it the battle tank or the bulldozer of the industry, which is exactly what the Judson is. No one has a service record that can match Judson, and never will be, unless they make a copy of a Judson. So anyway, back to the machine here. We don't got to run with the recovery tank. Here's the blower turning slower, but it's still got a little more CFM than a 405. It's got 435, 12 inches of mercury, but the big thing is because we got zero resistance, that 435 is right here where we connect the vacuum hose. If you got a truck mount with internal filters, you can take about 10%, maybe 20% of the CFM, because the filters alone create a lot of resistance. They're a fine mesh filter. And then as those filters start to stop up, you gradually lose CFM as you're cleaning with filtering the tanks. We don't do that. We do the baffling. If there's any dust or anything like that that's very light, it can blow through the blower. We've been doing it for over 40 years, and it's proven to work for us. So reliability, lower operating temperature on the blower extends the life of that blower. I guess come around to the front. As you see, it looks just like a TNT. Basically, we just extended a TNT 1 foot. I'll just go over what we got. We got exactly all you need. And so here's your pump switch. Here's the pump gauge, auxiliary pump out, lights or whatever, temperature gauge, auto parts, switch, same thing, auto parts, throttle, auto parts there, blower and lubricator. This is the propane tank gauge. I'm going to show you that really neat tank we got now. And you just hit that and it tells you what percent your tank's full. There's your flow meter. Here's where you hook your pressure hose up. It's got a 2.5 inch inlet for the vacuum hose. It has a 2 inch inlet right there. So that's basically, it's like I say, it looks just like a TNT. It's just a modified TNT. Now let me show you this side. One of the big advantages of a Judson is that engine location. The engine location, this engine has a high pressure, high volume internal fan. And we're taking that air that's being ducted through this housing and blowing it out the rear of that truck. So we're power ventilating the heat out of the vehicle with this engine. The front of the vehicle, in other words, this is sitting between the driver and passenger seat, there's no heat in the van. You can sit down in the seat while it's running and there's no heat. The heater sits right here on the other opposite of the engine. So what exhaust is coming out of the heater, it's just being power ventilated out the rear of the truck. So the front of the truck has no heat, ever. The back part of the truck still has some heat, but it's minimal. It's not that hot in these trucks. You wouldn't think so, but I mean, this really works. Now, another good thing about the location of this engine is I'm sitting in the driver's seat. I can turn around and get to it. It's sitting up on the recovery tank. Add oil, do the maintenance, check the belts, sitting down, pull the passenger seat forward, get to the pump. Now I want to talk about the pump. This pump pumps cold water. We lubricate that pump with our exclusive chemical injection system, because the only thing we're supposed to be running through a pump anyway is water softener. So we actually have a 10-year pump seal warranty with this machine, and the regulator has a 10-year warranty. And we actually get a lot of life out of it because it is cold and it is being lubricated. The location of the regulator, it's not panel mounted for a reason. Panel mount regulators are special regulators that are not common. Remember, all we care about is having something common. You need something, you can go get it local. By having this regulator the way it's mounted just on that one fitting, I can go put any regulator on here. I don't care where you get it, Lowe's, any pressure washing shop, you can mount that on this one mount point and get that machine to run with any regulator. That's why it's like that. As you can see, it's out in the open, easy to get to everything. It's got a pump clutch for doing flood work. Like I said, we got the warranty there. Now let's go over the engine. This is a factory propane engine. Now there's some big time advantages of this. We're talking a reliability because it's not water cooled, it cannot overheat, it can't steam out, it doesn't have a radiator, thermostat, water pump, fan, radiator hoses, radiator cap, water. Because you could overheat an engine and you'd be in a house, in a building a couple 100 feet away, and if the safety doesn't shut down, you'll lose the engine if it's water cooled. Now this engine, a normal gas engine like this, lasts 5,000 hours, but it's not a gasoline engine. It's a factory propane engine. See, here's the controls. That's the vaporizer. And anyway, when you run an engine on propane, it gives you a 50% engine life. In other words, if it's 5,000, you're going to get about 7,500. You say, well, how does it do it? When you drain the oil on a propane engine, there's not hardly any carbon in it. It's real clear. And so the oil doesn't break down. That's how it extends the life of the engine. When we're running a propane engine, we're green emissions now. And boy, are there some tax incentives to run your company nowadays with green emissions with propane. You would have to get with your CPA, but there is tax advantages now for running propane and alternative fuels. Once you get your tax savings involved in the picture, the operating cost of this machine is unbelievable inexpensive compared to what you would have to buy to match the heat performance. The blower is producing 435, which that's more air than can go through a wand anyway, so we're at maximum vacuum. But putting a larger blower is not going to do anything more because the relief valve's already probably bypassing 80% of the air anyway. That's just the way it does. You've got physical limits at the wand how much air can enter, no matter how much air you're trying to produce. So we got lots of reserve air. Back to the engine, it's a factory propane engine. These engines can be replaced for $2,000. They'll go about 7,500 hours, and they're air cooled. Now, air cooled, there's a reason that airplanes are air cooled. Now, I'm a pilot. My dad was a pilot, and I grew up in the aviation industry. My dad actually used to own the airport here in Greenville. And there's a reason that airplanes are air cooled, and it's reliability. There's no other reason. And that's nothing to be arguing about because I can prove it. An air-cooled engine, as long as it's running, it cannot overheat unless you shut the doors. Well, we're not going to warranty that. If you shut the doors on a water-cooled, it's going to overheat. So that water-cooled engine is air-cooled. It's air going through the radiator that cools the water. So even a water-cooled engine's air-cooled. So as long as you operate this machine the way it's designed, with the back doors open and the side door open, we give a lifetime engine coolant system warranty. So if this engine ever overheats, I'll warranty it for lifetime. Because it's impossible for an air-cooled engine to overheat. You cannot do it unless you starve it for air. Well, that's not the way it's designed. So that's the big advantage. Now, I talked to a guy the other day that's buying one of these from me. And he bought him a machine with an industrial water-cooled engine on it. And he thought that was it. I'm going to buy this industrial water-cooled engine and I'll be done the rest of my life. Well, it didn't work out so good for him because he lived in Montana and he was having to drive to Utah 8 hours to get anybody that could work on that special Ford industrial engine. Now, not everybody, you might have somebody in town for you, but for this guy it was a big hassle, and a lot of people it could be. But I got to thinking, I said, now he's got that Ford industrial engine that costs like $7,000 that's consuming over 3 gallons of gas an hour. And as he's driving that 8 hours from Utah, from Montana to Utah, how many little small engine repair shops do you think he passed? 500? I mean, think about it. You know, he drove right by all those little small engine repair shops. This is a common engine, nothing special. They're lawnmowers. Yeah, they're lawnmower engines, but they're common, and we got them on propane. It extends the life of it. And I just feel like the most important thing with the carpet cleaner is reliability. And even if I had to give up some performance to gain reliability, but with Judson, you're getting more performance. and more reliability, way more performance. And the operating cost is unbelievable on this unit because this engine only uses 9/10 of a gallon of propane per hour. So that's the fuel consumption of that. And we got 435 at 16 inches of mercury. It operates around 12. We're at a 13 horsepower load on this engine. Okay, it's a 23.5, so we still got a little over 10 horsepower reserve. So when the engine gets wore out, all engines, as they start wearing down, get a lot of hours on them, they'll drop a couple of horsepower. So we got that's already put in the picture here. Replacement costs, $2,000. Common. You can work on it, or a common lawnmower mechanic can help you with this. Our water comes into this float tank here, cold, and goes in there to the pump, to the regulator, bypasses back. We got about 4 gallons of cold water, so when you release that trigger and lay the wand down, you got hours and hours of bypassing for it. It will not overheat. That's really neat. It also auto primes the system because when the bypass comes in here, if there's any air in the system, it automatically, the air floats to the surface and it keeps it primed good. With our exclusive chemical injection system, it's impossible for our chemical injection system to fail unless the pump fails, because we use the pump to draw the chemicals. So here's the chemical line. And a lot of people are switching over to my chemical injection system. So if you've got an injection head on your pump and you want to get it converted, a lot of people call me all the time. I'll be glad to help you out. You just go local to Lowe's or Home Depot and get the parts and reroute it, and you can eliminate that injection head and actually be lubricating your pump with your water softener and your regulator, and it'll help extend the life of your pump too. So I'll be glad to help you on your existing systems. Okay, so look at the simplicity of the machine. If you have a problem with it, it's always a simple problem. When you got a complicated machine, you got complicated problems. The wiring, when you look at the wiring on a heat exchanger now, it's the most amazing monstrosity I have ever seen in my life. This machine's only got 5 wires. It's got a hot wire. It's got a wire going to the shutoff switch in the recovery tank. It's got a hot wire that runs the clutch, and then there's another wire that shuts the engine down. You know, there's a safety on the oil pressure switch on the engine, so there's just nothing here. I mean, it's just unbelievable simple. So the simplicity. So you got to remember, we've been doing this for 47 years. This machine's been refined through all those years. If we had any issues with our system, that was dealt with many, many, many years ago. So Judson's not outdated, it's refined. And you really need to spend some time when you're shopping the market of a TruckMount and see what we got to say, because what I got to say, I'll back it, okay? And that's a little different than these claims everybody's giving you. So let's talk about the performance here. So let's go right over there. Let's talk about this heater here. My dad called Little Giant in 1968, 69 and got one of these heaters, which was the number 3. This is the new number 4. It was made for a baptism, because Little Giant makes steeples and pews and baptisms. They still do. They're church supply. And they made this heater to heat their baptisms. So we took this heater in 1969 and pressurized it. And it used to have the thermostat to the bottom. We're the ones that moved it to the top. That allowed it, when you release the trigger, the flame shut off sooner because heat rises. The new number 4 had an electronic system. We put the mechanical on it. We assisted in the crossover tube. All the development with this heater, Judson did it in conjunction with Little Giant. Now Alan, the owner, he died, and then he died too, the older son. Tim, and Rex is running the operation now. But when you look at the performance of what this machine gives you in the operating costs, because it gives you that sustained flow. Now when you let go of the trigger, that spike, yeah, it'll go, you set the gauge to 280, it'll go to 280 because the water stopped in the system. Okay, that's like a heat exchanger. But what I'm concerned about is sustained temperature. Where on most heat exchangers, the ones that I re-engineer and everybody calls me and stuff, once they put a high flow tool on there, there's a limit to about 30, 45 minutes before they start dropping temperature once that preheated water cools down. They're circulating from the blower into the float tank back around, and that preheats the water. With this system here, the pump's pumping cold water goes into this thing, it ignites the flame here, mechanical. This is very reliable. I've only replaced about 6 of these in my whole life. It's just unbelievable how reliable these actual mechanical controls are. This thermocouple you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot. That's for the gas logs. You can get these lines from Home Depot. But it'll give you 230, 240 high flow wand, and it'll consume 1/2 gallon of propane per hour. That's the consumption on commercial. Now when you're doing residential and you're on and off the trigger, well, every time you let go of the trigger, the flame shuts off. It's not using any fuel then. So it's very efficient under commercial, not commercial, but residential, okay, and apartments. So that's the heater. Now this heater is rated for 1300 PSI. And that's kind of a good thing. Now let me tell you how this is a good thing. Because it's a safety in the system. I sold a machine to a guy the other day, and he was up in Virginia, and he didn't have the TruckMount a week. He accidentally let the machine freeze. Well, guess what? This heater's sitting on the floor. The components are up on top of the recovery tank, so all the float tank and the pump and everything's up on top of the recovery tank. This is down on the floor. The safety part of this was because it's only rated for like 1500 PSI, so the operating is 1300. So guess what? That weaker coil, the copper coil, ruptured before it caused any damage on the TruckMount. It relieved the system, it relieved the water off the TruckMount, and so it didn't damage the pump or anything on the TruckMount because gravity emptied the TruckMount coming down through here. And it protected the TruckMount automatically. Now you take a heat exchanger and let it freeze, and you got to replace the pump and the custom heat exchangers and the custom this and that. It could cost you $5,000, $6,000 to replace. The guy that let his machine freeze, I over the phone told him how to loosen this fitting, take this off, take all these little screws out, pull that coil out. Took it to a radiator shop, $60, put it back together himself. I talked to him a couple times on the phone, back in business, no further damage on the unit, $60. So that's another good advantage about a Judson design. There's just tons of stuff. All these years we've been building these machines, it's just unbelievable all the little things, we have advantage. I want to talk about this tank now. You talk about something really cool. This is unbelievable. This is a propane tank that goes in place of a spare tire. Now they got like a 16 gallon, 19 gallon, and I think the largest one they make is a 26 gallon. I think this is 21, something like that. Now, it's really cool because it's got a remote gauge that goes to the dash. You remember, I think I showed you on the dash there about that gauge. So you don't have to come back here and look at it. It's got a remote fill, so that'll be on the bumper. Now we're getting ready to install this machine in another Nissan. That last one we did was in a Nissan, and that was Neil. He's a guy that let his machine freeze. Well, he fixed it for 60 bucks, right? So anyway, this goes into place of the spare tire. And it's a liquid tank, liquid delivery. It's not vapor tank. So we had to run liquid to the engine. So let's go over here. So that's that. I want you to see that. It's real cool. It's got this cover. Very well built metal. This thing's really heavy too. Real nice. The liquid comes into the engine here. When you turn the switch off, that solenoid shuts the flow. That's called a vaporizer. We're going to tee into that vaporizer and run a line to the heater. So now we're going to run vapor to the heater. So we're going to run liquid to the engine, vaporize to the engine here, and vaporize to the heater. So it's really cool how we got this figured out. Now, when you're running a propane engine and the propane heater, installing this thing is really nice because we don't have to do a fuel tap. You know, the big expensive tap kit you have to get for the filler neck now. What do they want, $500–600 for one of those things? Then you got to use an electric fuel pump to pump the fuel up to the truck mount. You don't do that here. You mount this tank, it's pressurized. Now, propane is pressurized. It's not a lot of pressure, but it's enough to feed the system. And propane is safe. I've not yet seen a Judson truck mount have an accident with propane because everything's department transportation. You could probably take that tank and shoot a 9mm pistol with it and it wouldn't go through it. I'm more than sure it would. Okay, it's heavy. The gas tank of the vehicle's thin. It's going to rupture before this does. So the safety part, I mean, I see people putting videos of people putting propane bottles up in cars and it blows up and stuff, trying to make out like propane's dangerous. But I've not seen a video of a Judson blowing up, and we've been doing this longer than anybody in our service record. So there's this little scare tactics about propane being dangerous. Not with a Judson, I'll tell you that, because I've never seen anybody have an accident with propane on Judson. So let our service record speak for itself. So anyway, there's the propane, and then let's talk about the cost of propane. Now look at this right here. Everybody says, well, I don't want to run a Judson because it's dual fuel. Dual fuel. Well, some cases that's true. You know, you got to buy propane, then you got to go buy gasoline for the vehicle. But what they miss to tell you is you gain all that reliability for the hassle anyway. So even if you're running dual fuel, the reliability and the performance increase outweighs the trouble of the dual fuel. Instead of running a one big giant engine, it costs $6,000, $7,000. There's not local repair in a lot of cases, and the replacement costs, you know, is high. So it's just so reliable. It's what it's all about. Well, now you've seen these tanks. These are just tanks that you see if your house is being heated. I've seen them for years sitting behind people's shrubbery. And you know, and the company comes out, the propane company, automatically comes out and fills this tank once a month. And they just bill you for what they add to this tank. Well, when you're buying propane like that, it's very cheap because there's no road tax on it. But then to get the price down on this propane thing like I'm talking about, there's no tax incentives with the Clean Air Act for diesel, and there's not with gasoline, but with propane there is, because it's a green emissions. So once you talk to your CPA and you take advantage of your tax savings for operating propane, then now we got our own fill station at your facility. You take this hose and fill that tank up. Now, all the hassle's gone. You got your own fill station at your facility. Now you want to go one step further, think about putting that in a propane van. Chevrolet and Ford offer factory propane vans now. Isuzu offers factory propane box trucks. So think about that. Propane tax incentive, especially on the vehicles for sure. Buying the propane like this in bulk, they automatically top off the tank every month. You don't call them, they just automatically send you a bill. I used to have a house that was heated with propane, so I know I used to buy it that way. And again, we got that same gauge there to give you the percentage right there. This is really cool. And they got all kind of things, covers you put down over that makes it look like a shrubbery and disguise it. People paint them and stuff, but this is really cool right here. So you got your own fill bottle. This is 100 gallon, and it simply fills that tank off pressure differential. You don't have to have a pump. The empty tank has less pressure than the full tank, and that's how it fills with pressure differential. So I got some other information that I'm going to add to the video. I don't want to make it too long. This is too long anyway. I'm trying to say everything I want to tell you. is that I think if you finally look at the operating costs and the actual performance of the machine to be able to sustain temperature under high flow tools. Now why I like high flow, let me go over this and I'll end this thing. With a standard flow one, long hoses, you're going to lose 50 to 60 degrees depending on the outside temperature before the water gets to the wand. You know, the smaller the jet, the slower the water travels from the truck mount to the wand. Once you go high flow, like a 10 or a 12 flow wand, that water is traveling faster. So you only get about a 10 to 15 degree drop, so you get more heat at the wand. That's why I like high flow. And that's what you need in commercial applications. You're pulled up to a building that's 20, 30,000 square feet. You got to knock it out. And you need sustained heat. It doesn't need to drop after a while. And you need to get the heat to the carpet. So that's when you need it the most, is it to be sustained for a long period of time. All the heat exchangers that I've re-engineered, they had the big 60, 65, 70 horsepower engines. The guys had little giant heaters supplementing the heat on them when they went high flow. And then we just took their little number 2 and number 3 little giant heaters off, put the number 4 on there, and they're really happy. I've got guys that I've re-engineered machines. You're welcome to call them. Jeff Woods is one of them. Dan Markley, you're welcome to call them. They're extremely happy. The machines are very efficient now. They're very quiet. They got more performance than they had before. There's a lot of stuff Judson can do to help you. And I asked you just to give me a chance. If you got a problem with a truck mount, you're having issues, or you're getting ready to spend a lot of money on a truck mount, give me a call and let me see what I think about it. And maybe I can help you out or make a better decision than just spending more money. But I just want to do a quick video. We're going to install this machine in a Nissan van, so I'll just do another video on that. Feel free to give me any calls on our new maximum truck mount. If there's anything I missed, ask questions and call me at Judson Truck Mounts in Greenville. Our number's 864-233-6442, and I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks.